Have you ever noticed how the more you share with your family, the harder life seems to get as you grow older? Turning 70 can feel like your life is no longer your own. Suddenly everyone has opinions about your money, your health, your emotions. But here's the truth. Aging doesn't mean giving up your privacy. In fact, keeping certain things to yourself can be one of the healthiest, wisest choices you ever make. Not because you're hiding anything, but because you're guarding what's sacred. You've lived long enough to understand that not all love is smart, and not every question deserves an answer. Your silence isn't always distance, it's dignity. And no one talks about that. Most advice for older adults centers on openness. Share everything. Let others help. Be transparent for your family's peace of mind. But what if I told you that not saying some things can actually be better? That certain secrets, kept quietly, can protect your freedom, your peace, and your relationships. In this video, we'll explore 7 powerful secrets that many people over 70 choose to keep, not to deceive, but to preserve self-respect. It's about knowing where connection ends and control begins. It's about remembering that this is still your life, even when your kids or grandkids mean well. So if you're 70 or close, and you sometimes wonder if it's okay to hold some things back, this is for you. You're not selfish, you're not being stubborn. You're simply wise enough to know that some things are yours to carry, quietly, and with pride. Let's begin. Secret 1. Health worries. You don't owe your family a detailed report on everything going on in your body. Not because you're hiding bad news, but because constant health updates can sometimes cause more harm than good. Once you reach a certain age, even a routine checkup can sound like a crisis to your family. You casually mention a little dizziness, and suddenly your daughter's talking about moving you in. You say your knees hurt when it rains. Yes, and your grandson starts Googling assisted living homes. You were just making conversation, but they hear alarm bells. The truth is you might feel fine, but they hear worry, and that worry turns into pressure, decisions, and unwanted pity. There's strength in managing your health on your terms. Yes, speak up when something is serious, but for smaller issues, it's perfectly okay to observe quietly, make your own decisions, and take your time. Here's the psychological truth. When older adults constantly share health concerns, especially minor ones, it can shift family roles. You become the cared for, and your kids become the decision makers. And once that shift happens, it's hard to reverse. So hold that space. Let your family see your calm, your confidence, your ability to handle things. You've spent a lifetime caring for others. You still know how to care for yourself. That doesn't change just because there are more candles on your cake. Take Margaret, for example. She's 78, lives alone, and recently noticed some mild vision issues at night. She didn't panic or call her children right away. Instead, she kept notes, adjusted her lighting, and made a quiet appointment with her doctor. Turned out to be minor and manageable. Had she mentioned it too soon, her son would have shown up with pamphlets and panic in his eyes. She didn't lie, she simply waited until she had clarity. And that gave her power, not pressure. You have a right to your own pace. You have a right to say, "I'm checking on it," without having to explain every little symptom. And sometimes, staying quiet about your health is the wisest choice you can make. Secret 2. Financial choices. Not every financial decision needs to be a group conversation. After the age of 70, your finances stop being just numbers. They start meaning something more to your kids. They become symbols of inheritance, duty, and at times, expectation. That's exactly why some of the calmest choices you'll make will be the ones you keep to yourself. Maybe you want to get a more comfortable chair to support your back. Maybe there's an old friend you want to thank with a gift. Or maybe you're thinking of donating to a cause that's close to your heart, even if your family doesn't value it the same way. But as soon as you mention money, the questions come. Is that really a smart move? Don't you think it's better to save it? What if you outlive your savings? Even when it comes from concern, it can still feel controlling. There's a type of independence older people need to hold on to, and financial freedom is part of that. You've earned this. You've handled bills, made sacrifices, managed tough times. Turning 75 doesn't erase your ability to decide wisely. There's also a deeper pattern at play. Once you start opening up about bank accounts, wills, or future plans, the family dynamic shifts. Whether spoken or not, children start seeing things through the lens of what's coming my way. From there, every purchase you make may seem like you're trimming their future. That mindset is risky. It turns your money into their business, and your kindness into their concern. Consider Leonard. He's 82. His 3 adult kids are all financially stable. But when they discovered he'd been quietly giving monthly to a women's shelter, it caused a stir. They asked, "Why waste your savings like that?" But for Leonard, the donation was personal. He remembered his mother enduring silent suffering without support. That shelter represented something deeper: memory, healing, and doing what he believed was right. He didn't argue. He nodded, listened, and continued giving, privately, because his decision didn't need their permission. And neither do yours. In today's world, older adults are often treated like they need approval just to live freely. But whether you spend, donate, or save, that's still your choice. Guard that freedom, because no matter their opinions, this is still your life, and you have every right to live it quietly, wisely, and without regret. If this message is speaking to you, drop a number 2 in the comments. I'd love to know you're still here. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on the bell icon so you don't miss out. Your support helps us keep bringing you thoughtful, uplifting content. Let's continue. Secret 3. Emotional boundaries. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for your loved ones is keep certain feelings to yourself. After 70, emotions grow deeper. Past regrets resurface, memories feel more alive, and the quiet weight of loneliness can be real. But that doesn't mean every emotion needs to be shared openly. Not every old scar needs to be discussed, because sometimes sharing too much backfires. You try to express how you feel, and instead of support, you get solutions. Instead of comfort, you get puzzled looks, and that can leave you feeling even more alone. Many elders carry deep sadness, losing lifelong friends, feeling invisible, watching the world move on. Move on. But when you try to talk about it, your kids might say things like, "Just stay positive," or "You worry too much." They mean well, but they don't always know the right way. This is where emotional boundaries become important. It's not about keeping everything inside. It's about knowing what's worth sharing and when. It's about guarding your emotional strength and finding safe spaces to process your thoughts. Maybe you write your feelings in a journal. Maybe you talk to a friend who truly gets it. Maybe you just sit with your emotions, letting yourself feel what no one else can change. Emotional freedom matters just as much as financial freedom. Because when you rely too much on family to understand every part of your emotional world, you invite pain they didn't mean to cause, but still do. Take Margaret, 76. She missed her late husband every single night, at dinner, on quiet walks, in every lonely evening. One day she said to her daughter, "I wish I could hear his voice again." Her daughter, caught off guard, replied, "Don't talk like that. You're still here. You've got so much living left to do." She meant to lift her up, but the words shut Margaret down. She never spoke about it again. Instead, Margaret began writing letters to her husband every morning. Letters he'd never read, but she needed to write. Because for her, the act of releasing was more important than getting a reply. At this stage of life, you start to understand the difference between being heard and being healed. And often, healing doesn't need an audience. It just needs your truth, held gently and in private. So don't feel guilty for keeping some feelings to yourself. It's not because they're wrong, it's because they're sacred. And sacred things need space to breathe, without being solved, doubted, or misread. Secret 4. End-of-life preferences. Talking about the end makes others uncomfortable, but thinking about it alone can bring peace. Once you're past 70, though, HETS of death come more often, not from fear but from wisdom. You've lived long enough to know that time isn't unlimited. You've seen people go, suddenly or slowly, and you've asked yourself, how do I want mine to be? Here's the truth. Knowing your wishes is powerful, but telling your kids too early can cause confusion, not comfort. Maybe you've decided not to take extreme treatments if things get bad. Maybe you'd prefer a simple goodbye, not a costly event. Maybe you'd rather pass in peace at home than be surrounded by machines. But your children might not be ready for that. They might resist. They might beg. They might panic. To them, it's not about your rights. It's about their grief. That's why some decisions are best made quietly, safely, before being spoken aloud. Write down your choices. Make them legal if necessary. Share them with a trusted friend or advisor. And speak to family only when the time feels right. Gerald, 81, didn't want his children arguing in his final days. So he prepared everything early, a living will, a DNR, even his favorite gospel song for the service. But he didn't overwhelm them with all the details. He mentioned it once, calmly, and let the documents do the talking later. When the moment came, there was no conflict, just calm, because he'd already made the hard calls, sparing them the burden. Keeping your end-of-life plans to yourself, at least for now, isn't secrecy. It's clarity. You're not hiding out of fear. You're protecting your loved ones from a storm they're not ready for. You're giving yourself the dignity to choose, with calm, with strength, with peace, and most of all, you're giving yourself freedom. Because there's something truly reassuring about knowing that when the moment arrives, your thoughts will still echo through every detail you've already thoughtfully arranged. If you're still watching this video and these insights are speaking to you, comment number 4 below so I know you're with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I suggest you do, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video. Your support helps us continue crafting content that informs and uplifts. Now let's keep going. Secret 5. The financial cushion you quietly keep. Money, not how much you've got, but how much you choose to keep just for yourself. It's not a popular topic after 70. Many older adults feel obligated to lay out every financial detail for their families. Some even feel guilty for holding on to control, or for keeping something tucked away just in case. But let me tell you, holding back? That's not selfish. That's smart. Because here's the truth. Life keeps throwing surprises even in your 70s, 80s, and yes, your 90s. Unexpected health expenses. A leaky roof. A friend in trouble. Or maybe something joyful, like a sudden craving to travel, join a class, or support a cause close to your heart. And you can't do any of that if every penny is tracked, questioned, or already promised to someone else. You don't have to lie, and you don't have to hide. But you are allowed to keep a private fund, no matter how modest, that lets you breathe. Breathe freely. Choose freely. Say yes or no without needing approval. Take Carol, 75. She had 3 grown kids, loving and respectful. But every time she talked about her savings, they'd offer advice. Sometimes a little too much. So, one day she quietly set up a small separate account. She called it her heart fund. She never used it for groceries or bills, only for things that lit her soul. A visit to a lake from her childhood. Gifts for a neighbor going through a hard time. A weekend writing retreat. Nothing extravagant. But all of it. hers. And that made a difference. Not in the size of her estate, but in the size of her smile. This kind of boundary? It's rarely spoken aloud, but deeply honored once understood. And even if others don't get it, you don't owe them an explanation. Because sometimes the most generous act you can offer is keeping just enough for yourself. Enough to feel whole, grounded, quietly strong. The people who love you want to see you protected, but they also need to see you fulfilled. And your private savings might just be the bridge between the two. Secret 6. The emotional lows you never mention. There's a kind of silence that grows with age. Not because there's nothing to say, but because some truths feel too tender, too personal, too hard to explain. One of those truths, your emotional low points, those quiet, heavy moments, nights when you sit at the edge of your bed and ask, is this really it? After 70, those moments don't always come from chaos or tragedy. Sometimes they sneak in through loneliness. The ache of losing old friends, or waking up and not quite recognizing the reflection staring back. And still, most elders keep this inside, not sharing with kids, partners, or even close friends. Why? Because we're expected to be the anchors, the wise ones, the calm everyone else leans on. But here's a quiet truth. Even anchors need a place to rest. Even the strongest need a safe space to fall apart. You don't need to unpack every breakdown. You don't owe anyone a deep explanation for why a certain day hit harder than others, or why an old memory still brings tears even now. When no one's around, holding some of that sorrow close isn't weakness. It's something sacred. Because as you grow older, pain becomes more complex. It's not always something people in their 30s or 40s can truly understand. And trying to explain it might only lead to awkward sympathy, confusion, or worse, being brushed off. So when you keep certain emotional wounds to yourself, it isn't dishonesty. It's protecting the most personal parts of who you are. Take Henry, for instance. He's 81 now, kind-hearted and giving with everyone. But once a year, for one quiet week in August, he becomes unusually withdrawn. He visits the coast alone. His family has noticed but never learned why. They've asked, and he always dodges the question with a small smile. What they don't know is that Henry lost his younger brother to suicide during a summer night when they were both teenagers. That moment reshaped his entire life, but not in a way that's easily explained. So now, every year, he remembers it in silence by the sea. That grief isn't something he wants to unload. It's part of his quiet strength, and he has every right to keep it personal. So if there are days when you feel low, even if you don't know why, or do know and choose to stay silent, that doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It means you're alive. It means you've felt deeply. If you're still watching this video and these reflections speak to you, drop a number 6 in the comments so I know you're still here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that button and turn on the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. Your support helps us keep making honest, meaningful content. Now, let's move on to Secret 7. Secret 7. Your private financial backup plan. One thing elders understand, and younger folks often miss, is that money isn't just digits on a screen. It's about security, options, and peace of mind. That's why, after 70, having a private financial backup plan is not only smart, it's essential. Maybe you've got a small emergency fund that no one knows about. Maybe there's a side investment you quietly held on to. Or perhaps it's an insurance policy you rarely bring up. That's all okay. In fact, it's wise. Because over time, you learn the difference between being helpful and being taken for granted. Sometimes your adult children ask for help out of desperation, but they don't always see how their needs add pressure on you, emotionally, mentally, and financially. So you smile. You help when you can. But you also safeguard what you need to keep going. That's where your quiet plan comes in. Maybe it's a savings account that's never been mentioned during family dinners. Maybe it's a rental property you kept under your name. Or maybe it's simply saying no to co-signing a loan, even if saying yes would have been the easier route. Whatever it is, it's yours, and it should stay that way. You don't owe anyone an explanation for wanting to feel secure. You've worked, you've saved, you've weathered ups and downs, recession, price hikes, emergencies. You know how quickly life can change. Think about Barbara. She's 76, a widow living in a modest apartment. Her children think she's just scraping by. What they don't realize is, years ago, she wisely sold her larger home. Years ago, she quietly invested the money in low-risk bonds and set up a personal trust. She doesn't talk about it, never brags, but she rests easier at night, and that's what truly counts. There's comfort in knowing you're self-reliant, that if something unexpected comes up, a leaky roof, a medical issue, or even just the desire to relocate near an old friend, you won't need approval or assistance. So yes, hold on to that backup plan. No need to announce it, justify it, or even discuss it, just protect it. You don't need to make it public. It's one of the wisest choices you'll ever quietly make. Once you're past 70, you begin to notice something most people miss in their younger years. Life doesn't necessarily become easier. It simply becomes quieter. And in that stillness, your decisions carry more weight than ever. What you share, what you choose to keep, and what you guard, these aren't just preferences. They're essential life skills. Keeping certain things private isn't about distrusting those around you. It's about trusting your own experience. You've lived long enough to know that clear boundaries actually strengthen relationships. That peace of mind, self-respect, and independence are worth protecting. These 7 lessons aren't about hiding. They're about honoring your journey, about standing strong in your own narrative while others live theirs, and most importantly, about giving yourself the right to live these years in your own way, with honesty, bravery, and quiet power. So how about you? Which of these 7 spoke to you most? Was there one that made you feel like someone finally said what you've been carrying silently? Thank you for spending time with us today. We'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let us know one takeaway that resonated with you and how you'll carry it forward in your own life. Your thoughts truly matter to us. If this video touched you, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support fuels our mission to create thoughtful, meaningful content that informs and uplifts. Thanks for being here. We'll see you in the next video.